first I'm going to set the vibe with like just letting people know why we're even having this conversation. So last summer, Gary and I did a panel on allyship in action. In that discussion, I had asked him and two other CEOs what they planned on doing to create a space like for Black people in the C-suite. At the time, Gary had said, great, we're putting everything on my shoulders. I'm not within a holding agency, so I'm going to be pulling in 2 Black C-suites by Jan 1 or Q1. About 2 weeks ago, I took that video clip, posted it online, not trying to call Gary out, but saying, hey, yo, my man, look, you said this is great. I praised him in that. I said, look, other executives should be doing this. Where are you at? Where did you get? Gary then responded on Twitter by way of via a video post. We ended up going to the DMs and said, let's actually have this conversation publicly, because again, this is the type that needs to happen. So, but before we get into that, you touched on it a little bit earlier. I'm just curious to know, like, what is your thoughts on, accountability? Like, what does accountability mean to you?
It means the most, right? To your point, whether it's around anything, Me Too, Black executives in a company like the thing we had, silly stuff like I'm going to invest in NFTs, or I'm going to do that, if you don't deliver on it, you're gonna lose reputation. A lot of people talk about personal brand or all this stuff these days. It's all just reputations. The same stuff in the 1800s. There was or chiefs and Indians or cavemen. Like if you can't stand behind your word, if you're just saying things optically of the moment, and that's really, I think, what the crux of the moment is. I think if you look back at the last 20 years, things pop off. Could be anything. I think I've been doing a lot of homework on why kidnapping scared parents in the 80s. I get into these weird holes of like curiosity around human psychology. Like, everybody comes out, video games, rap music, like all the stuff we grew up with through the years of like, if you don't back up your words in public domain, you lose the trust of people, whether it's people internally, whether it's people externally. It's, it's something I think everybody has to think about. And I think if you're not backing up your word, what are you, right?
Let's kind of kick it to fast forward a little bit and touch on the question, because why I did that post, because I want to ask the question, where have you to this point actually landed with those 2 hires?
So since, what do you think that was?
About
do you think that was July or August?
That was when we had that big ass fucking storm. I think it was July. Yeah, July or August. Yeah.
You remember that? Yeah, so we, it's been interesting. First, since July and August, so the answer is 1 out of the 2. And I remember at the time of that, I was happy I said January 1st or Q1, because I knew there was multiple things going on. We'd lost some pretty significant business. We were letting go of some people. And I remember thinking, fuck, I don't have a C-suite spot besides chief diversity, which I think is like, we've talked about this in the past, like that's not going to get it done. So it's kind of cool. So the answer is 1, chief diversity, but what's better, and that's the word I'll use, is there are 2 positions I've created, which I'll be more comfortable. The only reason I'm kind of holding back is it would leapfrog people that hold SVP roles right now.
Gotcha.
And I don't want to put them on blast because I haven't talked to them. But we've been interviewing one, and the winning candidate amongst my team is this incredible woman who blew me away. And I told the team a month ago, I'm not hiring her. And this goes back to accountability, right? Like, so for example, we've had 2 creative director roles since June 1st come up at Vayner that have been filled by Black employees. That is because I wouldn't sign off on the candidates that they put in front of me that weren't. The way I feel like I can control it at this point is because I have to sign off on every hire. And so for me, I can't control the growth or not growth of our business. I can decline it. I basically created 2 C-suite roles that don't exist. Because to me, it's like, look, we'll run on less margin. These are going to be expensive salaries because they're C-suite. maybe they're premature because we're a small company, but it allows me to deliver on what is important to me. Because for me, if you can't, it's kind of like anything, right? Like my dad loves Hank Greenberg. He was a Jewish baseball player. I'm like, Dad, why do you like him? He's a Jew. I go, cool. He was able to see that person. If you can't see the person, you can't feel it, right? So for me, we've hired one. Okay. I've offered two. So in October and November I've actually created
Okay.
I'm going to shoot it pretty straight here. There's actually 4 spots in play now because there's some things I'm thinking about, not to scare current employees if you're watching this. There's 2 I've created. There's 3, Chief Diversity I filled. And then there's 2 others I've created. I've made offers to 1 individual on one, 2 individuals on the other. I haven't been able to land them because I was trying to steal them from big time places. And we're still a little bit of a small company. So that's where we're at. I have a pretty substantial read on another role that I feel great about. My intuition back to accountability. So the answer is 1, to like be in its most forefront. I think by June 1st, I'm at 3. The other things that have happened is 2 of the 3 creative directors, 2 of 2 have been Black since June 1st. 22% of our hires since June 1st at all levels have been Black. I've been really holding a quota. It's funny. I've been so anti-quota my whole life, but if you don't hold, it's kind of. I've decided not to consider it quota anymore. Will it's kind of like a P&L. I don't think paying my salaries is a quota. It's something that I just need to do to keep the machine breathing. And so that's where we're at.
Good. And back to your point, like I will say too, I think the go-to position for a lot of Black people usually is a Black woman at a chief diversity officer spot. And not to say that I don't want to discount that by any means. I know I have very good friends in that role, but I think to some extent the role is because I feel that they're set up to lose, right? And they're set up to lose because 2 things happen. Number 1 is they're not reporting directly to the CEO, right? Number 2 is they have no budget. A lot of the times, yes, there are some that don't report directly to the CEO.
Yeah, so that to me was to me a C-suite person needs to be
right. Or sometimes they sit within human resources, and the other people they have no team, right? So it's like this one person that's set up to come in here and make change. When in actuality, that like I say too, it's like every person across the company in the C-suite leadership should be accountable for diversity and the numbers. Right. And this is why I always say, too, is like 100%. We should be putting that or baking that into their bonuses. Right. Because let's be honest, like you and I both know, right, a C-suite, like let's just call it like on the low end, north of $500,000 salary. Right. And then let's just say your bonus is 50 to 100%. Right. Let's just call it 100% for someone on the high end of that. Of that 100%, I say that 20%, 25% of that should be based on your diversity numbers throughout your organization. And I think when you see stuff like that happen, when it affects people's bottom line pockets, that's when we see a drastic amount of change.
You can make anybody do anything. We've never had bonuses. I've always been scared that bonuses would lead to debate and unhappiness. I've now gone the other way on that. I'm now doing that. And to your point, you can make anybody do anything you want if they're bonused. If a decision maker, if you say you have to collect baseball cards and that's 25% of your bonus, they're going to have some Kobe rookies in their collection. So I agree with you. I think for every seat, listen, everybody gets to do whatever they want in life, like at some level. To me, if you want to make that a priority in your organization, for me, it's more around just the value that it brings to the table. One of the things I'm doing in parallel is I'm kicking off a meeting with my senior team this week around age. So one thing I've been thinking a lot about is 60, 70, 80-year-old employees. I've been talking about it for years, and I've just been talking. And I'm like, you know what? Like with COVID, I've been so much more operational. I've been able to get a lot of things done that I want to. I'm going to get this one done too. And so if I want 60-year-olds in my company, 70-year-olds in my company, because I think the creative industry is incredibly ageismed out. So to your point, I think if you make it part of someone's bonus,
so let me ask you a question.
That nature, you're going to get
I've heard from a handful of leaders that this fear of, well, I can't make room at my table because I've been running this agency or this company for years with my best friends. We went to college together. Our kids know each other. And so there's like this very much like this old boys network and white privilege, right? So how do you as a leader change the way, that way of thought?
I mean, again, here's what I would say if this was one of my friends saying that. Look, you get to do whatever you need. You get to live life, right? You live life. I think this is an incredible mistake to use that as an excuse, because I just don't think it's going to be the kind of thing that is going to be historically correct, nor is good for your organization. Because I think difference of thought in general, if that was all Black executives, all women, all age, like the narrowness of the echo chamber of that thought creates a lack of opportunity. That's where I would go with that. I think one of the things, back to the way we started this, you're like, it's been a good run. I think one of the reasons Vayner's been a good run is we didn't know anything. It was the creative thought of doing it differently. So I think, well, from my standpoint, I would tell my friend in that scenario, I don't think that's an incredibly
you
good
can be
strategy.
as candid as you like on this question, but have you heard similar stuff from other C-suites? Because I feel like I've heard it a few times being told to me, and it's as if there's a fear. There's legitimate fear of feeling like I'm going to lose something now. Yeah.
I mean, this is, I'll be very candid. I don't think I've talked to a CEO of an ad agency this year.
Well, even other C-suites and other
I'm talking 2020,
companies, right?
The problem, not the problem, this is actually, it's a slang term. The incredible thing is most of the CEOs I know are incredibly progressive. I come more from, I'm a little out of the loop in the wine world, which is not progressive, but most of my relationships sit in incredibly progressive Silicon Valley DNA places. And look, Silicon Valley and VC life has plenty of its own shortcomings. But the ones I've talked to, and I think this is product of selection of who you decide to have relationships with, I think have been more thoughtful than that. I have not heard of anybody going that route. I do think that the ad world is very traditional. Like, I feel like a lot of big companies are more focused on the optic win than they are of actually believing it. Like for me, I just want to win, and whatever is not as good as I think it can be. For me, I just think it's like, do the right thing, always be accountable. If something's not where you want it to be, like Black leadership in my company wasn't where it needed to be, and I need to address it. And you take full accountability and you start.
I appreciate that. And I think that a lot of people want to hear that, right? It goes back to the conversation we were having is like, we saw so many companies post the black square, right? Black Lives Matter and all this, and stand on their soapbox and say, we're going to donate millions of dollars, right? But in actuality, like 7, 8 months and 9 months later, no one's saying a word. It's like nothing happened. So I think what now we're seeing, people want answers.
I think people have choices too. Yes. And I think people will, I watch every day. All I do for a living really is I'm really a strategist. I've come to talking in our world, I just listen and watch and listen and watch. And, there's a million different ways that people decide to play it. My big thing is that everyone's gonna, the consumer is the consumer is the consumer. So like, for example, let me go the reverse on you. One thing I'm fascinated by is so I did something recently where I was looking at things that were canceled and how their business was. And keyboard warriorship goes both ways. Keyboard advocacy that's not backed up by action, right? I mean, I literally, for example, I looked at people canceling Chick-fil-A.
Oh yeah.
Just search it on Twitter, go type it in. And then literally watched people 4 months later post a photo on their Instagram eating it. So I think both sides are quite vulnerable to this hypocrisy thing. Leaders who come out and try to act cool in the moment and then disappear 6 months later, what you're talking about. And then I think the reason they get away with it is because people say things but then don't act on it either. My favorite example of this is during the last 4 presidential elections. I have friends on both sides of the aisle, like most people. And going back to Bush and then Obama and then Trump, and like everyone's moving to Canada.
No shit.
I've had 80 friends moving to Canada on both sides. Nobody moved to Canada. And I think that's the extreme. But to your point, you know, my bigger question, I was talking to a friend the other day who's going through a tough situation on this, where the CEO made claims and she's nowhere close to anywhere, right? And I finally said to her after about 30-minute phone call, because she was distraught, I was like, look, you can leave. And I was like, you're so talented. That's a devastating blow to that company. But people, you know, but it's hard when you, you know, when people have mortgages and different stuff, and this stuff is complicated and like, you know, and I always say that with compassion. I don't say it like so glib, because these are friends, these are people I care about. I'm like, look, don't leave tomorrow. Like, but interview. Like, get a job for $20K more. You know, it's like, look, this is a time where people are far more open. And so, you know, what I want is for organizations that quote unquote don't get to where they need to get to, they're going to feel the market dynamics over time. I really believe that.
So let me ask you a question.
I really believe that.
You know, you have, since you have like these 4 positions, right? You're hoping to get some in by June 1. What do all of your companies look like in the short term? Let's call it like 1 to 2 years, right? If we start to talk about diversity and inclusiveness, like what do you think or want it to look like?
It's funny. It's a really interesting question. I think it's more around intent. And one of the, you know, it's funny. One of the things that's so interesting about a chief diversity officer and a CEO relationship, when I was interviewing, and we had about 4 serious candidates call in Q3 and 4, right? I really want to, I'm a very big non-micromanager. So, you know, this incoming CDO, she'll have a lot to quote unquote say about it. For me, it's getting into a place where we are very intent based on making sure that we have a lot of thought from a lot of different people in strategy, creative, every parts, like all parts of life, transgen, Middle East, so you're like really being thoughtful.
And disabilities as well.
You know, I use the whole probably, you know, might be a word. You know, some of these things could be really interesting. I actually think it's pretty cool. As far as numbers, you know, I haven't set that. What I don't know yet is, do I want to set that? And by the way, that's why I think, much like my CFO, I'm very passive to like listening and then saying no, yes, no, yes. I think that's something that I'm looking for in value from a CDO, but I'm not against, you know, to be honest with you, I'm not against trying a lot of things. I'm not against having a year where we look at the end of the, you know, I don't know if for example, let's role play. If at the end of October this year, I have a significant meeting on D&I and the CDO is like, look, next year I want to hit these numbers. That doesn't scare me, because I don't think 1 year is like the end all be all stamp of life. I'm like, let's try it. Let's see what it feels like, right? You know, I think the biggest thing is taking things from the subconscious to the conscious. I think, to me, what I hope this chapter is for a lot of people is it's the generation where this issue becomes as important as winning awards for places like that. You like, for VaynerMedia, awards are demonized. For your career, awards are on a pedestal. For both of our companies, paying your bills and having a CFO is a requirement. And to me, I think that D&I is going to become a requirement for successful progressive businesses. That's my biggest ambition, that I never get lulled. Like that I know what I said to myself when I was brushing the teeth, and it was, forget about the people watching this or the clips, like me with myself, brushing my teeth. And I said, I'm never not gonna pay attention. Right? Like, to me, as long as I'm in control, I can pay, like, it now runs through my head. Like, by the way, you notice how I, interestingly said, well, now there's 4 roles. When things transact in my mind of like, is this the right person for this role? No, they're not. It now becomes top of mind for me of like, where do I sit?
Yeah.
Whereas before it wasn't enough.
Yeah, and look,
and that's
I
accountability,
appreciate that. I think we all appreciate that. But let me ask another question then, because the other question then falls down on, well, okay, well, we'd love to put in that talent, but we can't find them. So I mean, so how are you? How are you?
That's honestly, that one you're not going to get. That's I have a guy who does analytics for a lot of script doing for me, like scaling me. And I said, look, there's this role that I have in mind. And I said, go to LinkedIn and show me. He showed me 25 candidates in one day. Listen, people right now watching are not losing weight and working out because they're claiming that they have too much work and their kids are around too much. Well, you know that's an excuse.
Yep.
By the way, the other thing for the ad world, and we're going very narrow here, I do think the ad world lacks in D&I compared to other worlds.
So here's the problem.
So go and take people from publishing.
A lot of agencies think that they can only find talent within other agencies, which is why the tech world wins a lot.
That's stupid.
Because they go out and diversify. They pull people from everywhere.
You know what? Well, you know what? For me, publishing is loaded. Publishing is so niche that there's incredible. That's what I have been talking to my team about. I'm like, look, there's publications that have 90% of the work staff being Black. And they have creative directors. And by the way, when you look carefully, their first 4 years out of school were at McGarry Bowen. They just happen to be at XYZ for the last 9 years. That one's unacceptable because it's almost like super cliche.
So then let me ask this then. Do you think that from what you know, right? Because I'm sure you know a lot more C-suites than I do, right? What do you think, or do you think there are any companies out there that truly are a good model for what diversity should look like? Like, do you think there's anyone out there? Mm-hmm.
I'm sure. I think that the best ones are the ones that are
Yep.
I said the ones that I think are probably best is, the ones who are in full control, who have good control and have good intent around the subject matter. For me, I'm uncomfortably confident that when you and I do our year-end recap on this, I'm making it now, why not, right? When we're here on December 1st, where I'll have a ton of data, it's going to be executed. It's just, and I'm sure, by the way, I don't think I'm special or not special. I'm sure there's thousands of CEOs where she or he really cares about this issue.
Absolutely. But I think and why we're having this conversation here is 2 things, right? And this is the 2 key takeaways I want all 1,209 people here to fucking listen in and tune in on, is that people like myself need to know that it is okay to actually reach out and have these conversations. It's okay to actually hold people accountable. There's this fear of saying, well, I can't say this because of this or because of that. And I want any C-suites that are actually watching this to know as well that it's okay to come forward and have these conversations. It's okay to say, you know what, we didn't get it all right, but it is a work in progress, right? So I do want to say I appreciate you being candid and open here.
In the most serious way, it's everyone's running, when we were together, I'm worried about not firing more people. I also have a whole company that's pressuring me because we didn't do raises in October to give them raises in January. I had hundreds of people. I was scared to do it. I did it. Everybody has lots of decisions to make. There's a lot going on in real life. Everybody's got many things going on. My big hope is that having a diverse workforce and, most important, leadership team just becomes another thing that you care about. Because I think it will be, by the way, for no other reason than I think it's going to be good for your business. Yes, do I think it's the right? Yes, but guess what? I don't get to, I come from the Soviet Union. I'm giving you my opinion. I'm not going to shit on your face if you but what I'm going to tell you is, as somebody who's passionate about stuff, it's just going to be good. That best friend crew, and it's gonna. Why would that you up? Something doesn't work in my brain. Literally, the only thing when I heard you say that, I'm like, because they're uncomfortable to have a black person in their circle. Like, I don't understand that. To me, the big one is what we're going through, which is we're deciding to make less profit, which affects all of our employees, to create more spots because I didn't want to fire somebody who didn't need to be fired so I could replace them with a black leader in place. I said to myself, what I need to do is create new spots for these leaders. And if, unfortunately, some other leaders don't perform when I am hiring for it, I need to prioritize the thoughtfulness around using the, the 2 creative directors we hired. We were underwater freelancing, losing money. Our CCO is concerned about like client stability. You know this better than I do. And I just said to her, Angelique and Claire, like incredible people, I was like, no. That, I think, for every leader who's listening needs to understand. It's one thing when it's convenient. It's another thing when it hurts. Again, for ad people, I'm going to make it very simple. We had CDO spots open up in the summer and fall and winter. We needed those spots filled because clients were we were freelancing, which is very expensive, not permanent. And we had candidates that my leadership team wanted me to hire, and I said no. Because I wanted them filled with black creative directors. It's not super complicated.
So I wish more people could act like that.
And I think
we need that.
I think that's the only way you can win. You have to make it a priority. No different than when you say no to somebody. I said something to a friend, it kind of broke through to him. You always bring it to business. I said, bro, sometimes somebody comes to you and says, I want a $50,000 raise, and you say no because you just can't afford it, or, and I'm talking real now, or you just want to make more money that year and you don't want to I'm like, it's that. When that becomes that much of a priority, I think it's super important. I really do. I really think it's a operational task that is achievable, but it's as simple as making it a priority. No different. I spent all my 30s telling my friends I was too busy to work out and eat healthy. I'm busier than ever, and I'm making it happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I prioritized it, right? I'll give you another one. I'm busy right now, right? But I see this whole NFT movement. I don't know if you're looking at the crypto space, the blockchain. And this week I canceled 2 or 3 important meetings, just to do conversations with people that are ahead of me in the space to educate myself because I'm prioritizing it. It doesn't look on paper to be the most convenient or even short-term transactional best use of my time, but long-term, it matters for me, NFT, I think. and that's how I think about these kind of issues, which is don't do the convenient thing, do the right thing for yourself. You get to decide what that right thing is. For me,
I agree to that completely,
it's better
and I appreciate that. It's interesting, man, because it's funny because a lot of people come to me and they say, well, tell us why we see ads like the H, and I say this a lot, the H&M with with the kid and the monkey on it, the black kid, and I say it's because we don't see black leaders at the table, right, having these conversations. More importantly, the C-suite creatives, right? So and you'll hear me bring this up a lot. It's like when I look across all 5 major holding agencies. For folks that are watching that don't understand, these agencies own essentially like 90% of creative agencies and media agencies across the world. And in the US, there are only 2 black chief creative officers, right? At my level, underneath that, there are now 6 black ECDs, 2 of which under my agency. And then under that, there's about 5 group creative directors. So that's crazy. And I bring that back a lot to the point that like, I almost feel like that we're in a time like the NFL was in the 80s, right? 70s and 80s, where you rarely saw a black quarterback. And back then it was like, they didn't trust him. They didn't think they were smart enough. But then when they started putting him in the positions to win, they put Cunningham and like all these people changed the landscape of what the game could be. And I almost feel like we are in like right ahead of that. It's like creating these opportunities to show, because if we look at like, who's buying all these fucking products, it's people of color, right? It's
Well, it goes, listen, I mean, I also think if you look at popular culture as a whole in America, it's incredibly influenced by diverse groups, and I think, yeah, I mean, look, this is a foregone conclusion. And then I tell a lot of my black friends, I'm like, start your own shit. Like, let me help you. Like, it's so sometimes hard. Like, it was how I was as a student. Everybody thought you had to be a good student, and I was like, I was a bad student. I was like, I'm going to do my own kind of weird. I think sometimes it takes breaking the game altogether. And I think you'll continue to see that evolution. I really hope so. And for me, it's about allocating an hour at night like this, like we're doing right now, and hopefully some leader or some kid thinks a little bit different. It's about the actions. Like, it all just comes down to the individual human beings, right? Your action. I actually saw another kid, I don't know if you saw the Twitter reply, the way I replied was to another person that got in between our convo. Like, it's the opening and the willingness to have conversations. And I think, to your point, I think you make an important point. One thing I've been talking to a lot of friends about, as the world in general is dealing with a lot of issues from race and gender and financial, I'm like, look, we have to leave space for people to say, I'm sorry, and for people to say, I'm in progress, because that's how you get good shit done.
But I mean, we can't get there unless people like yourself are actually okay with having these conversations, right?
More importantly, we can't get there if people like yourself don't have the passion to continue the conversation on a daily basis. For me, what I thought best after a lot of the conversations I had in the summer was doing what I've been doing, making sure the slots as they became available in my organization were filled by black leaders, making sure that I created the slots for even more, even if at this size of my company, maybe it was inconvenient financially, but I think it's actually convenient financially, because the spirit and the energy and the vibes and the love and the feelings that come associated with getting your organization proper will lead to much more happiness. People will work happier, feel like it matters to me.
I'm going to ask you one last question, and then we might ask a few questions here from the people watching. You kind of talked on this a little bit, you peppered it throughout our conversation, but for any CEOs that are actually watching or get a hold of this, I'm sure some press is going to end up writing about this sometime this week. What advice would you give for them to help diversify their organizations, to settle the fear that they might have of creating that room at the table, to express the importance of actually having, a diverse set of individuals there?
The fear at the table, I have no answer for. If you fear having a black leader or several black leaders at your table, that's you have to really ask yourself why. To me, I think the one that's more practical, honestly, Will, I'll be honest with you, I don't know what the answer to that is. Like, I don't know, like, if I sat down with somebody who says fear, there is no proper answer to that. What may be more practical is, I can't afford more slots, and for me, it's like, run less profitably in the short term so you can run more profitably in the long term. I mean that. And I think that will help people practicalize it.
You know what? No,
does that make sense? You understand what I'm saying? Like, to me, that part breaks with my brain. Like, what are you scared
it's
of?
Weird, man. Like, I think it's a fear of losing control, right? It's a feel of, again, like, from the conversations I've had, which is, well, making room at the table means I have to let one of my good buddies that I've known my whole life go, right? Instead of creating.
Right. That thing is, by the way, I think that's fair. That's why I had to go through. That's why I said my second part. Run less profitable. It will be better for your business. That's what, I almost don't want to sit on a soapbox. I don't want to talk about social. I don't want to talk about your reputation. I don't even want to go. I have made more breakthroughs with my friends on these conversations. By the way, you know this. Yeah. This was the conversation I had every day 4 years ago with Me Too. Every day. And I said, listen to me. I was like, listen to me. And by the way, there's going to be 3 to 4 more in everyone's career. But, like, this is good. This is good. This is great. And the answer is be less profitable. And you know what happens, right? When you're somebody who loves you says that to you in a good way, you know what you really do? You start looking at other things. Right? All of a sudden you don't need to buy 40 cupcakes. Or Will, do you understand that if all the big 6 holding companies would stop buying too much bagels and orange juice for every pitch meeting that nobody eats anyway, and cut that in half, they would have plenty of room for another black leader at the table.
That's real talk.
Financial, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, dude, man, look, let me check. Some of the questions are crazy, man. So I'm not going to actually go here with some of these, but I will say that, look, you like marriage proposals and shit. Jesus, man, this is what it comes to. Yeah, I told you
look, you were better looking Don Draper. Look, these are the conversations that need to be had. We're on for 45 minutes. I saw people saying, thank you so much for being on this long on this subject. People glaze over it. People, look, if you're a human being, you don't have to feel uncomfortable. Bro, I'm working. You want to hear something funny about me? I'll say it publicly right now. I'm working on my candor. Believe it or not, in these domains, I'm great at candor. Well, the reason my agency isn't as great of a culture as it should be because of my heart is because I struggle with candor and telling people they're not good at things. Yeah. Because I don't like negativity. Yeah, it's wild because they're like, Gary Vee, but the people who work for me like, yeah, it's true. Yeah. Like, we're all working on and like race, candor, kindness. Most people are mean in the office because they're actually insecure. I have incredible angst with the creative industry. The way that people make the work better, but it's a completely subjective call. You know, there's so many things everyone's working on. And it's okay for race to be one of them. What's not okay is not being accountable. What's not okay is hiding from like a situation. Listen, by the way, you do you. I'm not telling you how to live your life. When I say it's not okay, it's not going to work out well.
Yeah, you're right.
It's not.
You're absolutely right. Look, man, I appreciate this. I appreciate that you actually came forward and had the conversation. I appreciate that we had this conversation in the DMs and decided, yes, just go out and actually have this publicly. Because again, I'll say it a third time, these conversations need to be happening. And for anyone that's watching, like, it's okay to ask people what's going on, right? It's okay to be vocal and say, look, you promised this, what's going on? Please, yeah, do it. Go ahead.
Can I give you one? I did an all hands-on meeting for like all my 1,000 employees. And I was like, questions? And young lady, 3rd week in the company, she was like, she came at me super hot. I was so proud of her. Back to like, I know you're right now, I'm listening to you for these 45 minutes. I'm like, I see. It's important. He's trying to give courage to people to ask questions because communication solves problems. I love you for that. So let me jump on it. Let me tell you a story of a young lady who on her 3rd week at VaynerMedia went on the screen in front of the whole company with me and started talking social dilemma and like, what's our responsibility? And I was proud of her. And I gave her all my answers of like what I believe. She came like, and she didn't just like, oh, thank you, great Gary, for an answer. She came back and it was this incredibly awesome dialogue that honestly helped a lot of people. Like, Netflix is an algorithm making you watch it. Like, like it was a thoughtful combo. And I think right now, people, there's so much tilt in the air, but I think you're absolutely right. Yes, and by the way, there's a million ways to ask a question. There's public ways. People, listen, I'm out and about. I get asked publicly.
Yeah.
And I answer.
Yep.
Like you and me talk. So we got here tonight. I get asked privately. I try to answer. I get 20,000 of them a day, but I answer. I get emails. I get groups. Like, either you're going to answer or you're not. And what I can tell you from somebody who's got nowhere to hide, if you just tell people your answer, it's a lot better.
You're right,
than
man.
that.
And I think that's all we want a lot of the time, right? It's especially right now, just so many promises and people just want to know like what is going on, right? And it's what's unfortunate is a lot of the publications aren't able to even get this story out there for whatever reasons they might have. I'm not going to go there publicly here, but that's unfortunate, I said, but what's unfortunate is that
What's up, my friend? I'm sorry.
so many publications have lacked in writing up that information, right? Have lacked on like the follow through, and I get why, and I'm not going to call them out specifically why, but you know, it needs to happen.
Honestly, my man, the publication aspect, like to me, it's like the leaders, like why wouldn't you want this to be better?
But I'm saying in terms of publications, actually helping to hold them accountable, right? But again, why this conversation is important, you know?
100%. 100%.
Doing well, my man.
I really appreciate it, man. I hope you're doing well.
You're probably done for the night. I'm getting a ton of text messages and saying, yo, guys, you should take this to Clubhouse. I don't know if you want to, if you're around. You can send me you don't have to answer now. You can send me a DM, let me know how your night might be.
Well, I don't, you'll appreciate this. I deemed it earlier because I have something in the background with Singapore, so I got to go do my responsibilities.
Man.
But we'll talk plenty more times.
You as well, buddy. Chat soon.
I hope you have a wonderful night. Evan, thank you so much for having a couple seconds and being able to tell the Believe Nation a little bit about Empathy Wines. It means a lot to me that you would take this valuable real estate and time on your channel to give me some love. It means a lot. It's just good karma points, and so you're awesome. Thank you. Believe Nation, if you're into wine at all, go to empathywines.com. My whole career's work was poured into producing a wine that rivaled $40 to $60 wine for 20 bucks a bottle. I'm just super excited about this subscription-based wine business. You can order 3, 6, or 12 bottles in subscription form, rosé, white, red. If you search on Instagram or Twitter, you will be blown away. People are literally like, I don't even like Gary Vee, but the wine's good. Super proud of the effort. Thanks, Evan, for the time. Wishing you guys all happy and healthy.
If you want to learn how to market on social media like Gary Vee, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.